I'd like to start by sharing a story of a little girl. A little girl who needed to have things done just so and just right. I said needed, not wanted, because it's truly that. She needed things to be done perfectly. For example, as a toddler, she would rewrap her baby doll's blanket over and over again until it was done just perfectly, with no wrinkles and all the creases were laying just right. As an elementary school aged girl, she would clean her room. Not just tidy it up and make her bed because her mom asked her to. No, she would deep clean and rearrange her room every week like clockwork. One time, her brother busted open his lip from his scooter. Her sister was vomiting from the sight of the blood. Her mom asked her to go and get a bowl for her sister. Wondering where on earth this little girl could be with the bowl, her mom found her digging in the kitchen cabinets looking for just the right size bowl. As you may have guessed, that little girl was me. I did not grow out of the desire for things to be just so either. In fact, it's still a very real part of me. Why? Because I'm a perfectionist, and I've chased perfection all my life. I'm curious, what comes to mind when you think of a perfectionist? These definitions and phrases capture it well for me. But I understand. These tendencies to dot our I's and cross our T's create traits like those found in this Very Well Mind article. Not very positive and uplifting, huh? My goal today is to show you that being a perfectionist isn't all that bad. Chasing perfection can be a beneficial thing. As I've mentioned, I've chased perfection all my life. I didn't always understand that's what it was, and it wasn't until a huge and completely unexpected turning point in my life that I understood a little more about myself, why I tick the way I do, and ultimately how those potentially negative tendencies could be used for my benefit. Let's go on a journey together. It makes the most sense to start at the beginning, right before that turning point in my life. I'm going to take you back more than 10 years ago. I was on a family trip to California visiting my aunt and uncle. I can still picture that beautiful sunny Sunday morning. My uncle was introducing us to a good friend of his, Ted. Ted was and still is an adoption attorney in California. Somehow we got on the topic of what I want to do as my profession. It was ironic that it came up because I was in limbo at this point in my life. I had failed out of nursing school several years prior, and I was just working in a mediocre yet comfortable job. But I wanted to make a change. I just didn't know where or to what. I felt stuck. All I knew was I wanted to work with children. You see, as a child growing up, my family was a foster family to more than 30 children. Seeing the very different life experiences of each of those children was life-changing for me. All of a sudden, my world was much bigger than the one I had encountered on our small farm in our small rural community. This opened my eyes to the fact that not everyone has the same life and opportunities as me. Those experiences early on not only helped me develop a compassion for those children, but also drove me to want to work with them in some way. What that was going to look like, I had no idea. I was explaining this to Ted, and I said, I don't know, maybe I'll open up a daycare or something like that. Ted looked at me and said, you should consider being an adoption attorney. I laughed it off. I said, no way. You don't know me. I could never be an attorney. While on the car ride home that day, my family looked at me and said, you need to really consider that. That moment was a turning point in my life. I couldn't shake the idea of becoming an attorney. So I went home to look to see if that local community college I attended for nursing school was enrolling. They were. So I enrolled. Things just started to fall into place, so I went for it. Now, I mentioned that I had failed out of nursing school several years prior. As you can imagine, that certainly was not easy for me to accept. If it wasn't for a job opportunity at that time, completely unrelated to nursing, I probably would have continued to try and possibly fail at nursing. Looking back, I see how those different pieces of the puzzle from my past were coming together. Those couple short years in nursing school laid the foundation for me to build upon. Many of those credits were applied to my bachelor's degree and eventually sent me on my way to law school. Failing is always difficult, but it's important not to get stuck on the fact that there was a failure and instead look for a reason and a lesson learned and then a new path forward. Fast forward a few years. My first day of law school. Picture this. First day, first class, first person to be called on by the professor for a question. All I can remember in that moment was thinking, please don't say my name, please don't say my name, but you guessed it. They called on me. I froze. I had no idea what the answer was. I was still trying to let the fact that I was sitting in law school sink in. How am I expected to read and understand a case from the 1800s? Isn't that why I'm in law school? Well, with my stomach churning and all eyes on me, I somehow found the words to say and answered in my most confident, but certainly not confident, sounding voice. But it was wrong. I was devastated. What a great way to start. But you know what? I didn't quit. I could have told myself that I wasn't cut out for this. I should just do myself a favor and drop out. But no, I didn't. And why? Because once I commit, I see it to the end. And I do not say no to an opportunity for growth. See, that's the thing with perfectionists. We hate the thought of failure and not attaining our end goal. So we don't back down easily. We are also very aware of our weaknesses and we're constantly striving to improve ourselves, to attain perfection. So anytime I see an opportunity to improve on a weakness, I say yes, I have to. So on I went. And I'm so glad I did. This was when I began to learn and understand so much about myself, who I am, what makes me tick, and why. A good friend and previous law school classmate of mine summed it up well. She said, law school was the evolution of me. So how did that evolution take place? If I may, I'd like to take you through some of those times. As I mentioned, I do not say no to an opportunity, and I certainly didn't waste time in law school. There was only one way that we could get involved in law school our first year, and that was to be a Student Bar Association, or SBA for short, representative. I'm someone who likes to stay behind the scenes, so I ran for it, and I was elected with a few of my other peers. It was truly a great experience. It forced me to step out of my comfort zone, interact with professors, deans, administration, and my classmates. Second year of law school was no different. I ran for SBA secretary. I won. I accepted an offer to join the Law Journal to help with my writing skills. And I accepted an offer to join Moot Court Honor Society to work on oral advocacy and speaking skills. I'd like to focus on Moot Court. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Moot Court, but it provides members the opportunity to compete in different competitions where they write briefs and participate in oral arguments before a panel of judges regarding a fictitious problem but addressing real issues in the law. I knew public speaking was not a strength of mine. A classmate actually accused me of sounding like I was on the verge of tears while giving an announcement to our class during our first year, so I truly needed to work on this skill. It's the only reason I joined. A requirement for all members was to participate in at least one competition a year. There were internal competitions within our law school and external competitions against other law schools. I thought, you know what, internal competition's the way to go. I'm certainly going to be pushing myself far enough outside of my comfort zone for that one. Well, the VP of Moot Court had other plans. He asked me to step in and fill a position on an international law Moot Court competition team. It was a competition with approximately 700 law schools in 100 countries and jurisdictions. I'd first participate in the national competition with the potential of competing in the international competition. I was perfectly happy to participate in that internal competition at my school. I certainly had no plans of an external competition, especially one this large. I felt underqualified, but of course, the perfectionist in me said yes. And just like that, I was sent on my way to navigate the complex problem dealing with international laws, of which we had very few resources in our law library. Through the many practice moots and then the ultimate competition, I came out of my shell and found my confidence in my abilities with public speaking. That that accused me of nearly crying during a class announcement happened to be my partner for the competition. He likes to frequently point out that I went from barely being able to make an announcement for upcoming school events to participating in this competition and excelling. I got the highest score on my team after all. I pushed on through third year of law school. Continued to challenge myself. I ran and was elected SBA president. I was a vice president on a moot court. I continued with my involvement in Law Journal. Chasing perfection is a beneficial thing when it pushes us to grow and improve. But we also need to remain aware of those negative tendencies and learn how to balance them. Being SBA president fueled my perfectionism. I overthought everything. I worried about things, how they were going. I was focusing on what I needed to do next, all at the expense of missing out on the actual experiences. The summer between second and third year, I started to notice a turn in my health. I had always struggled with headaches, and although they made things more difficult, they never prevented me from pressing on. This was different. They were much more frequent and much more intense. They actually forced me to lay down in a dark, quiet room with ice pack on my head and my eyes closed because of the pain. Then I started to get weak. So weak I could not go up the stairs to my second-story apartment without getting completely wiped out and shaky. I saw different practitioners and they all pointed to the same cause: stress. The stress of law school, the studies, the extracurricular activities, daily life outside of law school. I was a newlywed. All was piling up and my body was cracking under the pressure. All I kept thinking was, how am I going to make it through the rest of law school? That's the downside to perfectionists. We throw ourselves all in. We take on so much and put extra pressure on ourselves trying to attain perfection. Those were some dark, hard days. I could not just drop out of law school, and of course I couldn't back down from my responsibilities as SBA president, VP of Moot Court, and Law Journal. Oh, and then there's an internship that I was also doing on the side. Because I felt like I had no other option, I dug deeper and pressed on. Recently, my mom shared a story with me from that time. My sister asked her one day why I was crying. I guess I was working on a project at their house. My mom explained it was because I had a really bad headache, but I had to complete my project. The story hit me. I don't remember that time, and I'm sure that wasn't the only time it happened. We often forget how hard the day-to-day can get when we're working through some of those challenging times. So yes, there are things to be aware of when chasing perfection. We can expect too much of ourselves and set our expectations too high. We need to be watchful, take care of ourselves. It's very hard to find that balance between challenging ourselves and just simply taking on too much. I'm still trying to find that balance. But going through that experience was not lost on me. That third and final year of law school, I did learn how to say no to an opportunity. I was asked to join another external moot court competition, and although everything inside of me wanted to say yes and to challenge myself, I said no. Sometimes it is okay to say no to opportunities. I continued chasing perfection right into my career as an attorney. As in-house counsel, there are many ways that the scales can be tipped too far in the wrong direction. I had to learn to balance my perfectionistic tendencies during contract negotiations, for example. There's give and take in negotiations. Usually the end result is not a document with every possible protection and favorable term for your company. It's just not realistic. I had to learn to work with my in-house clients and use business judgment, to determine which of those protections and terms we could really compromise on. However, those perfectionistic tendencies did come in handy with my drive to want to make our legal department machine run more smoothly. I identified gaps and filled them by creating programs and educating myself in different areas of the law where there was more expertise needed at our company. And I also took on trainings for our in-house clients. As you may recall, I'm a low-key person. I don't like to be in the spotlight, but when I saw a need for those trainings, I challenged myself and I stepped up and I provided those trainings. And now I'm the go-to for trainings at our company. As you may have noticed, I mentioned I'm in-house counsel, not an adoption attorney. I certainly have not ended up where I thought I would be, but that's okay. It's all part of the journey. And I've found other ways to fulfill that passion by volunteering as a court-appointed special advocate, or a CASA, in my local community. Chasing perfection has also followed me into a very different part of my life, motherhood. I did not think motherhood would be part of my journey. But one 4th of July weekend, it became a reality. My husband and I were not prepared for this news. So I did what every perfectionist would do. I researched in order to prepare. Through all that research, we determined what was best for our family and our new addition, and we committed to it. That entailed some very hard days, but I did not waver. Plus, as anyone who is a parent knows, there is the need for constant flexibility in our routine and schedule, for sure. These little beings are ever-changing. Just as soon as you figure it out, they change, and you need to figure it out all over again. These were exceptionally challenging times for me, but it has resulted in so much growth at the same time. Who knew a tiny human could have such an impact? Throughout the time together so far, I've mentioned a few lessons learned. I'd like to mention a few other noteworthy ones. Ask for honest feedback. It's good practice to ask for honest feedback from those who know you best. It helps you identify your strengths and weaknesses. Perfectionists like me are usually very aware of our weaknesses, so help identifying the strengths, that goes a long way. Be in competition with yourself, not others. It's never been about beating others for me. It truly was about me being my best self and for myself. It's okay to have fun. Sticking to a schedule, putting our head down, drudging on, they're all really great. But I've realized it's okay to stop and have fun occasionally too. You do not have to be so serious and uptight all the time. Many have spoken this truth into my life recently. Weaved into my life has been a story of endurance, commitment, and strength. These really are words that can define those chasing perfection. When we learn how to appropriately balance our expectations, that's exactly what it looks like. Endurance, commitment, strength. My hope is that you found encouragement today. I'm hard on myself. I expect perfection. Over the years, I've begrudgingly accepted the fact that I cannot attain it, but that does not mean I stop striving for it. Hopefully, by sharing my experiences, I've helped some of you better understand those of us in your life that do chase perfection. And for my fellow perfectionists, I hope you've learned it's okay to push yourself. It's okay to step out. Be vulnerable. It's okay to fail. You'll probably see the most growth and change when you do. Just be sure to keep a healthy balance. Thank you.